Today, I'm bringing you a three-part series on child safety. My first conversation is going to be with Donna Bartos from Bloom365, a philanthropic organization that assists children about how substance abuse, including alcohol, exacerbates any negative consequence or experiences you're having in the home and what we can do to ameliorate that problem. I want you to tell me what statistically do you know is the interlink between alcoholism, alcohol abuse, and domestic violence?
Yeah, so there is a connection between the exasperation of domestic violence and substance use. I just want to put this out there that substance use, alcohol, drugs, any kind of substance use or misuse is not a root cause and is not a reason for domestic violence. Domestic violence stems from power and control, an individual using their power to control someone else. But we know when substances are involved, that can amplify the abuse and violence. And between 40 to 60% of reported domestic violence cases, now these are just those that make it to a database somewhere, involve a form of substance use. So we know that substance use is one of those ACEs or adverse childhood experiences that you referenced.
Yeah, and we know that it exacerbates the problem. It makes it far worse. It makes people, is there something that we like to do on the preventative side about alcohol, or are we just taking it from the uprooting abuse side? What?
So at Bloom365, our work focuses on 11 to 24-year-olds. And we know that 11 to 24-year-olds have either experienced victimization, domestic violence themselves, have witnessed it in their home, or are perpetrating it themselves. As it relates to substance use in the younger generations, in the younger populations, we help them understand that that is what we call a co-occurring issue. It is something that they might be at risk for if they've experienced or witnessed or perpetrated domestic violence. So that might be a result of the abuse and violence that they've experienced. And we also help them see that substance use in the home or witnessing substance abuse in the home could increase the likelihood that they themselves perpetrate violence or experience victimization. So while we don't work to prevent substance use, we recognize that it is one of those intersecting issues that often rises to the top of issues that young people are facing or experiencing when it has to do with domestic violence.
And when they are in a home with someone who's a domestic violence, a domestic abuser, or somebody that could or could not be exacerbated by alcohol, what are the signs that you see, or do you see any signs? And it's just a disclosure. And please tell them about the elephant in the room cards.
Yeah, sure. So domestic violence is not a one size fits all type of problem. It doesn't look the same for every family or every relationship. It could be verbal abuse and never be physical. It could be put downs, humiliation, threats, more of the emotional type of abuse. It could be telling someone what to wear and what not to wear, who to be friends with, who not to be friends with, not to hang out with family members, because if you hang out with family members, that means you don't love the person who's controlling you. It could be financial abuse, controlling the assets and resources. And what we're finding in disclosures that we receive from students who go through our curriculum is that they're exposed to all of it. They're exposed to the emotional abuse, the physical abuse, as well as economic or verbal abuse at home with a parent, caregiver, or extended family members. Lynn mentioned, you mentioned our elephant in the room card system. We know that young people, particularly between the ages of 11 and 24, don't typically reach out for help. Only 9% will ever reach out to a formal source or an authority like a parent, a teacher, law enforcement, or any adult in their lives if they're witnessing or experiencing or in any way impacted by domestic violence. So we've incorporated into our curriculum and outreach efforts where we hand off, pre-COVID, when we're in classrooms, we hand off a card and it has an elephant in the room picture on it. It describes what the elephant in the room means, that thing that no one wants to talk about because it's so uncomfortable, or maybe they have a thought or a question and they're just embarrassed to ask it or afraid they might be shamed for asking it or sharing. So on the cards, and we receive thousands of them a year, is where students are disclosing that they're witnessing domestic violence at home.
So that was Donna Bartos of Bloom365. And as you can see, she is very well versed in this field. And she talks a great deal all over the country about the things that we can do to help our children, help deliver our children a safe upbringing and environment. She talked to us about the adverse childhood experiences, what they are, and how they affect the children. And I think it was a very enlightening conversation that allows us to see the breadth and depth of what children go through when they're in a home where there are difficulties, alcoholism, domestic violence, all kinds of issues.